volume just slightly. Does that make any difference for those of you who wanted it up? Good. Can you hear me now? Well, you should see this sometime when it's really acting up. I heard from one of the other tour people a minute ago that there was a little thunder going on down there. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Which is a little unusual for this period of time. The sign down there tells you that the best time is generally at a rising tide. And now the tide is going out and it's thundering. So there's no specific time when we know that it's going to be thundering. But when it really thunders, it sounds just like a clap of thunder over here. Now look down here in this little cove, and it's called Monument Cove. There's somebody down there, as a matter of fact. But if you notice, those of you can see the cobblestones down there. The local people call this Cobblestone Alley, and they say they're quite deep. That they keep piling in there every one of them, more and more of them. So it's getting deeper and deeper with cobblestones. You know, they used to use those for ballast in ships back in the old sailing days. And once the ships were beached, they would take those cobblestones and build the streets with them. Well, that's where the cobblestones generally came from. Back in old England and even in this country. So that's Otter Cliffs in front of us. That's the highest headland on this coast. I'm told it's 140 feet.
On the main coast?
No, on the coast of the United States.
Wow.
Not as high as the ones in Nova Scotia, but this is also a popular place for them to rock climb. There were lots of people out here on Memorial Day climbing that. Well, what they do is they take them and put them up on the top, and then they rappel down on the line, and then they pull themselves back up. They've got cleats embedded in that rock already. They're permanent. You don't have to be hammering cleats in. So they can attach their hand or their buckles or whatever they call those things. And then they ought to go up into Bangor. That's the closest place to get a brain scan, I think. You see these lobster buoys out there on the water, folks? There are lots of different colors of them. Each man in this state has his own color of buoy, which is assigned to him by the state when he gets his license. That's a big business in Maine. It's big enough so that the state has had it under control for many years, and it's been very effective to have them monitor everything, because otherwise they could have overfished the resource, and they haven't done that in Maine. Some years are better than others, but it's not because of a lack of lobsters or shortage of them. There are other reasons. Sometimes because the men don't work regular. But it's a one man, one boat, one license business in Maine. The man who owns a boat and the license must be on the boat when it's fishing. He can't send anybody out in his place. He can have a helper or two if he wants, and that person is called a stern man. But he's got to be on there with him. And even if it's a woman that's a stern man, there are no stern women. Well, these women around here who act as stern men don't like to be called that, so they prefer to be called a stern man as long as they can. They are very limited as to what they can keep. You know, they can catch a lot of lobsters and keep only a small portion of them because of the rules that they have to follow. They cannot keep a egg-bearing lobster, which is called a berry lobster, a buried lobster. B-E-R-R-Y. we're leaving the park, by the way. There's a sign right there on the left. There's 1 square foot sign that says entering Acadia Park. That house right there has a stern man living in it. She's a woman.
Who's that, Jenna?
Yeah. Works over at the restaurant downhill.
Yeah.
She said she was going to work a couple of winters ago. I don't know whether she went out or not.
Yeah.
Most of these guys don't fish during the winter because they have to go way offshore to do it. And their boats are about 30 feet, you know. Some of them are 35, 40 feet, but that's a pretty small boat to be going 30, 40 miles offshore in the dead of winter in the North Atlantic Ocean. So it's pretty risky, but they do make quite a bit of money when they fish in the winter. Most of them fish between April and December, and then the rest of the winter they take off. They have a lot of repair work to do on their traps and all that tackle and everything. But when they catch a egg-bearing lobster, they have to V-notch one of the tail flippers if it doesn't already have one. And if it's had one for some time, it gets smaller each time that lobster sheds its shell. So most of the men will re-notch it. So it will still be recognized very easily when it's caught by someone else. And that's helped to keep the resource at a high level, you see. A 5-pound lobster can produce about 100 to 150,000 eggs. A 1-pound lobster can produce about 5,000 eggs. So they want to keep them in there and keep them alive as long as they can. The main reason is because the survival rate is rather limited. Out of every 50,000 eggs that are hatched in the wild, they claim only 10 of them will survive to adulthood. 10 out of 50,000. And adulthood is about a pound. And it takes about 6 or 7 years to reach a pound from the time they're hatched. So they got a pretty long way to go to get to be legal. When they catch them, if it's not a female egg bearing, they measure the lobster with a little ruler that they keep on board that's preset for the smallest, which is about 3 5/8 or something like that inches, and the largest is about 5 inches. And what they're measuring is from the eye socket to the back of the head where it meets the tail. That's called a carapace. The structure of a lobster is the same as it is on a roach. In fact, a lot of the lobstermen call them roaches. All of them call them bugs. We talk to each other and say, how many bugs do you plant today?
Some people call them bug pickers, right?
Right.
Yeah.
If you look over these trees to the left in the distance, you can see Cadillac Mountain. That bare end over there on the right is right in front of where we were parked when we were up there. And the mountain on this side of it, but on the same side of the road, is Door Mountain, and off to the right is Champlain. And if you remember, when we stopped and I showed you these three the first time, Champlain was on the left and Cadillac was on the right. Point is, when you get back home, I know people are going to ask you about your trip. And I think I would love it if you could remember to tell them that you had a tour guide in Bar Harbor who could move mountains. Just flipped them right around. By virtue of that measurement, folks, the smallest lobster that's legal in this state is probably going to be 1 pound. It'll just have reached adulthood, which means it can now reproduce. So they definitely want to at least get them to that level. And the largest one that you can keep is probably not going to weigh any more than about 5 or 6 pounds in this state. So if you're ever in a restaurant in Hawaii or someplace and they've got Maine lobster on the menu and they say they've got a 7 or 8 pound lobster, it didn't come from Maine, but it's still referred to as a Maine lobster because that's kind of a generic term for this particular lobster americanus. And they're all called Maine lobsters, even though they didn't come out of the Maine waters. And this little pond here is called a tarn. And that's a British word that means a lake at the bottom of a mountain. So rather than name it something as a tarn, they just named it the tarn. Simplified thing. There's a rock on the other side that is a little higher water line. It looks a little more like the rock at Gibraltar than it does right now. But just to the right of that, there's another beaver lodge over there, almost on the shore. And that guy takes nice care of his yard. You see he's got a nice shrub in the north end of the yard there. Some of these beavers take more pride in their property than others. And if you were out here in your own vehicle, and you'd come out this road, which is Route 3 south of Bar Harbor, you could turn right here on this road and it would take you down to the wild gardens of Acadia. And when we left there, we turned left at that intersection below us and then came to the Park Loop Road, which is underneath this bridge right here. So off to the right is back down to the Thunderhole, Sand Beach. And we're approaching Jackson Lab. They are the largest private employer in this county. They employ about 3,000. That's one parking area. We've got 2 others. And the Mouse House is over here to the right. It's separate from the lab itself. That is the Mouse House right through the trees.
That first building, huh?
It's so secure that even employees aren't permitted in there unless they're working directly with those mice, tending to them. So here's the lab here.
Aren't there special like copyrights on them and stuff like that, like patents and stuff they have?
Yeah, they are very, very much in the paperwork when it comes to those things. They sell for about $2,500 a pair.
Oh, for the mice?
Yeah. And they have to be perfect specimens.
Yeah.
In order for them to be valuable in a lab study. So they keep them under very sterile conditions. It's a pretty interesting operation, I must say. I met the fellow one time. He was on the tour, and he said he was here because of the Jackson Lab. He said he's doing business with them. I said, "Oh, what do you do?" He says, "I sell them blood pressure machines." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, for the mice." I said, "Where do you put the cup?" He says, "On the tail."
That's where they get their
I
blood
said,
pressure.
"You can hardly see the tail, the cup." He said, "That's right, it's pretty tiny." Imagine. There's got to be somebody doing everything.
Stuart Little.
Yeah. Well, Little was the name of the guy who developed that system.
What, the little
The mice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was his name, the first.
That's ironic as well, yeah.
Folks, I said early on, I give a down East Maine tour with a southern accent. It's not quite as southern as our friend from Texas back there in Oklahoma, but I can be there when I want to. Every time I think about it, I can get right down there with them, I'll tell you that. But I did want to tell you what down east refers to. A lot of people think they know or they don't know and they want to know. Some people don't know and don't give a flip what it means. But I always like to tell you anyway. Back in the days of the commercial sailing vessels, when that was a means of transporting goods around the country, we didn't have any roads to speak of. We didn't have anything to haul things with. They put things on a boat and they sailed it on the water, maybe on a river or whatever, but certainly on the ocean. And when they were sailing into ports like Maine and on into Canada, out of New York or Boston or Philadelphia somewhere, they found that the winds along this coastline are blowing pretty steadily out of the west into the east, because that is the prevailing wind on this continent. And the fact is that this coastline is running almost east and west from about here on up to Canada. So they were able to sail with the wind at their backs, and that's sailing downwind, if you weren't aware of it. So it makes it easier to sail downwind than it does crosswind or upwind. So it was great going up. It was tough coming back. But they generally didn't have a load on when they came back. And if they had perishables aboard when they went up, then more of them would survive the trip because it took less time to get there. So they would make more money. So the sailors used to really work hard at getting onto a boat that was sailing down east. And the captain of the vessel is the one who coined the phrase. He would write in his logbook, sailing down east today off the coast of Maine near Rockland or Portland or whatever. And then the sailors started referring to it that way. I'll never forget when I first started coming to Maine, I went out to Little Cranberry Island with my wife, and we were going to have lunch at a little restaurant out there, but she wanted to do a little shopping on the pier before, and I didn't want to, so I said, I'm going to have a beer. I'll see you in there. I'll be in the restaurant. Well, the young guy was a bartender, and he said, where are you from? I told him, Virginia. I said, where are you from? He says, here. I said, Mount Desert Island? He says, no, this island. I said, oh, excuse me. I said, well, where's that down east Maine accent? He says, oh, well, we don't mess with that until we're about 40. He didn't have a Maine accent. Well, he had a Maine accent, but not that
big.
Not that old.
Mahava.
Well, that and how many lobsters did you land today? Folks, this is the middle of the shopping district. They're waiting with bated breath for you to show up in here with your either credit card, cash, checks. They'll take almost anything you got. Come on, folks. If you want to cross, get across. I'm not going to wait all day.
The closest brain surgeon is... That's beautiful.
Well, we just went through the financial district of Bar Harbor, and now we're in the garment district.
Yep. The food court's on somewhere.
New York has got nothing on us. There's a guy on the other side of the island that puts out a Statue of Liberty on his deck overlooking Northeast Corner. Now, if you want to know what's going on around here in the wintertime, which is practically nothing, you can actually pick up this video camera up on this Jetty's restaurant right here on the left. You got two of them up there. The only one working, I think, is that round one right over the sign. And you can access him on his website, which is geddys.com. And then you can grab that camera with your mouse, and you can control it for about 2 minutes, I think, maybe 3.
It's a good camera, too.
Yeah, it's a good camera. You can swing it across the harbor here all the way up the back behind it. And you would be amazed at how desolate this place is.